So I got to see DreamWorks' Bad Guys 2 a little bit early, and by that I mean it came out today in the UK on July 25th, when I just fully had no idea. I'm so used to all the marketing telling me that it came out August 1st, it wasn't until someone literally pointed it out to me on Discord that it's the next day that I can actually go see DreamWorks' next mainline movie. And I gotta tell you, going into it, I wasn't too sure where I stood on the matter. Because DreamWorks as an animation studio has been going through a little bit of a tumultuous time. I mean, their most recent movie was the likes of Dogman, with which was entirely outsourced, and that studio has now gone bankrupt. The time before that, you then had DreamWorks' The Wild Robot, absolutely stellar, real piece of cinema, but again, as well, it was the final in-house animation being made as their animators were actively being culled at that time. This is now the next mainline theatrical release, and it has been entirely outsourced. And though as it currently stands, it doesn't seem like this studio is going to immediately go under or anything, there is something to be said in general about how DreamWorks just don't make them literally how they used to. That being said, when it comes to the actual production quality of this movie, we're gonna keep things spoiler-free this time around since it doesn't come out for another week in America for you guys, so I won't spoil any narrative things. When it comes to making a sequel of a well-known established DreamWorks movie, yeah, this is good. I could even go so as far as to say it's great. I'm usually the cynical animation guy. I haven't seen a good mainline release since Dogman and K-pop Demon Hunters. But in general, my default seems to be skewing negative as all sorts of companies make stranger and stranger decisions, and though DreamWorks has made a pretty bad one, I would say overall, it doesn't seem to be too reflective on the quality of their Bad Guys sequel. And maybe that's because it is a sequel. It's easier to tell good narratives with characters that are already established, or basing it out of an adaptation of a book series, which is still very much ongoing. For me, the original Bad Guys was one of the real stellar standouts of DreamWorks' latest lineup that very clearly had that influence from Sony and Spider-Verse, while still very much finding their own stylistic rendition of that new subgenre of animation. And this time around, they still knocked it out of the park. The moment this film started, I was fully wrapped back into it with so many fantastic animation and directorial choices. I think it helps as well that this is all about heists and that kind of spy-y kind of action sequence, because that is clearly where this movie flourishes. Every action scene in this movie is one of the best action sequences I have ever seen in a movie. The way the music then ramps up after a while and it all just pumps full volume, and these characters are doing these crazy, not even flips, it's just like the circumstances of a vehicle chase scene where a car does a side flip to detach a bunch of chickens to then go flying into a bunch of cops that have suddenly just spawned out of nowhere and then later appear in a giant mountain of themselves. Like, it's like that kind of classic cartoony absurd logic that it just rolls off of so fantastically. Across the board, this is just a well done product for exactly what they were going for. If you want more of The Bad Guys, that is absolutely what you get here. The directing is great, the cinematography is amazing, the action sequences are out of this world, the character performances are good, both new and old. Awkwafina is there, but I think it works in this scenario. And it really does feel like the set pieces just keep expanding more and more as they find out more ways to play around with the concept of the bad guys now going good. Though there are a few things in the marketing that I could see they sort of pulled as a slight. Some words are not exactly phrased as they are in the trailer to just get across the premise. And I feel like there is a slight narrative gap that could have been had there, which I'll talk about more in the spoiler version. But overall, if you want more Bad Guys, this is exactly what you can find. And it is a stellar, fantastic, family-friendly entertainment piece all the way through. And thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more animated movie reviews. There'll be all sorts, even through August. I might be away for most of August. I'm going to be wearing a biscuit on my head. You don't need to know the context. But still, I've got a backlog that covers the entire month. So look forward to that. Right, back to the second half of this review. But would I say that the original movie is succeeded by this movie? I don't quite think so. While this movie is immaculate in all of the things it's trying to do, I think it doesn't necessarily reach its absolute fullest potential for what an animated movie can do. And maybe that's just me coming in with way too high expectations, but The highest bar was set by classic emotional Pixar scenes and Mitchell's vs. Machines and Spider-Verse. You know, those like superseded the boundaries of what animation can tell, especially in narrative form. And this is just more good entertainment. Action sequences, crazy, but it doesn't have as strong of, say, an emotional hook, and certainly dives a lot less into the character side of these characters, the bad guys, especially compared to the original. Which makes sense. The original's entirely about the bad guys going good. This is the bad guys who are now good, doing more heists for one reason or another. It's fun, it's great, I love the escalation. Some elements of the story reminds me of some of my other favorite stories of all time. And if you're looking for simply a recommendation of whether to watch DreamWorks' Bad Guys 2, yeah, absolutely. Great, fantastic entertainment all the way through. And especially considering I was very hesitant with whether DreamWorks can make something of said quality, being much more of an outsourced material than anything before. But this proves that the answer is, unfortunately, yeah, they're fine. And while there are gripes I'm gonna have with that, in the way it's very much disempowering certain animators, hey, at least it still is animated by animators, just different ones, and there's no semblance of AI here. The bar is both so high to breach the best and so very low in some regards. But this does seem like, to me, DreamWorks has a solid foundation it can bounce off of for a while with the Bad Guys franchise. No matter whether it is made in-house or out of house, the movies they're able to drum up based on the Bad Guys IP seems to be immaculate one way or another, since they certainly have talented people involved in all different departments, and can be emblematic that even their future movies, original or not, are not nearly as held back simply because it's not being made in-house at DreamWorks too. In that sense, it's great news, but this shouldn't take away from the fact that they were culling their own animators less than a year ago, and even more recently with Dogman, that studio is now defunct. So it's certainly worth keeping an eye on how specifically the Bad Guys 2 studio is handling things and going along on the business side of things. I ain't perfectly on board with yay, DreamWorks as a studio because of these business decisions, but considering the comparison is Warner Brothers and their controversial take on platforming controversial people way past their expiry date, or Paramount now doing all their sorts of political things on the side. God, if I covered 2D content, I would totally do something on that South Park episode. This overall is just a solid, really high quality, middle of the road kind of film. Definitely not one that I would want to miss. And if you're particularly a fan of animation, like I assume you would be if you're watching this channel, I would 100% recommend it. But it also doesn't breach into the highest territories, even if in the narrative, obviously, they do go pretty high. That is at least our preliminary spoiler-free version of a review. I'll release maybe a proper spoiler-crazy one next week when it releases internationally. But hey, that was a nice discovery to make only yesterday, that there's a whole new movie I needed to run around and review today. Turns out DreamWorks' Bad Guys 2 wasn't so bad. Again, Bad 2. You get what I'm trying to say. For now, though, I'd best end it off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this little review. Do tell me your thoughts on Bad Guys 2, whether you've seen it or if you're going to. Even if it's more just impressions from the trailer, if that's all you've got so far. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and more, and I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!